Hi, this is Erica Norton, and I am the founder of Perfect Legal Video, and I'm very excited to have with us today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She owns a family and real estate law firm in the Worcester area, and she and her team are fantastic at what they do. Every week we come to you with some new topics, and today we are going to be talking about how mental illness could affect custody. So let's talk to Nicole now. Thank you so much for joining the show, Nicole.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. So let's talk about this. I guess first let's talk about, when you say mental illness, I think it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So, what types of mental illnesses are we talking about?
It could be the gamut. It could be, just depression. It could be anxiety. It could be bipolar. It could be schizophrenia. It could be a combination of a little bit of all of that or undiagnosed of all of that. So we're talking about anyone that has, a mental health issue that's really precluding them from getting the help that they need or getting the services that they need to help their child. Mental health goes back to even things like eating disorders. So, again, that could have an impact on a family as well. And that is a mental health issue. So, it covers the gamut of everything.
Right. Well, that's very interesting because when you're going through a divorce, I don't particularly remember anyone saying anything about, hey, let's ask if one of the parents has one of these issues. Because really, when you're married, people do have problems like that. And a lot of it doesn't come to light and it kind of manifest. It seems like it manifests later, but it's been there all the time. So, do you have a lot of divorce cases where people know up front, or do you find out later and you have to go back to court to try to make some adjustments?
I think it usually comes to a head when you're going through the legal process. So whether it be a divorce or paternity case or custody case, at that point it starts to show itself a little bit more because now their world is unraveling. And when their world is unraveling, it shows with them, right? And so you have these things where, my wife just wasn't right and there's something going on with her. Maybe it's postpartum. Great, something just that simple. Okay, but how old's the kid? Well, the kid's 5 years old. Maybe it's a little bit more than postpartum. So again, those are the things that usually come across because, unfortunately, men are ignorant when it comes to things like postpartum, unless you're a doctor or you're in that field. So they'll equate it to that. Or, she's just overly bitchy. She just all the time. She's yelling at me all the time. She's throwing things at me. Okay, well, is there a family history of mental illness? Oh, well, I know that somebody was taking drugs for something. I think it was bipolar. Okay. And that's kind of how you get the story. So unless there was a diagnosis, and there could be, it could be that you're actually on disability and you're receiving benefits for that. But a lot of times you have these people that don't have that diagnosis, or oh no, she's just depressed. But now she's out of control. And I'm saying it's she, and I apologize for the people that are listening, but unfortunately, depression and anxiety usually are women. And obviously, postpartum are women. Obviously, the other issues are more neutral. But that's what we kind of come across as something happens. And again, the more stress in your life, the more these things are going to flare up because oh my god, my world is falling apart and I don't know how to address it anymore. And I don't get to control the situation anymore. And oh my God. And so they start getting more and more anxiety, which is, of course, causing more and more problems.
Well, you've mentioned a lot of the things that manifest in women or might be more obvious in women because we express our emotions more. I'm not saying every woman, there's certainly plenty of men that can express their emotions. But, we get into some stereotypes here. What are some of the things that you see on the male side? Is it more like anger management or they just want to get on with their life and live like they're single again? I, I don't want to, I'm not going to say everybody, for sure, not everybody, but there are certainly those out there, and you hear a lot of complaints from those couple of things. And I'm sure you've seen a lot more than that.
Yeah, definitely. When you're talking about a man that is having mental health issues, that's exactly what it boils down to. Is it usually reflects and shows the most in anger management. Very volatile situation, and obviously physical more than mental. Women are nasty, and we say horrible, horrible things to one another. And yes, we start to throw things because we know that if we can't hit you because if you hit us back, we're going to get hurt, right? So women are more of that. I'm going to throw something at you. I'm going to get you with my words. I'm going to tell you what a horrible piece of crap you are. Where men are more bulky and they have that ability to go, let me get in your face. And that's, of course, going, wait a minute, what just happened here? So it's that mentality that really kind of shows with the men's side of it. Sometimes they have the overly emotional, kind of suicidal mentality of, oh my God, she's leaving me and I have to kill myself. So there's a little bit of the extreme there, depending on, again, what type of masculine man you are. You're going to have one of those two symptoms, most likely.
I mean, and you would think that one of the parents is going to be concerned with keeping themselves together for their kids, because if you can't keep yourself together and you're letting yourself go off the rails. Sometimes you don't have control over it for sure. But certainly divorce is emotional and there could be a fine line. Some people might go crazy because of a divorce. I mean, it's a lot of stress. All of a sudden your life is completely changed. It's taken a 180 and not usually for the better for a while. I mean, people do glow up, as they say, but they have to go through a really hard time first. So I mean, I think some people could go off the rails, but you've also got to be able to look in the mirror and say, okay, I can't act like this around my kid. I'm like, what, I've really got to stand up for my kid when XYZ might happen to them at the other house. Um, it could be the man's, it could be the woman's house. Certainly, there's plenty of inappropriateness to go around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the biggest thing is, again, you as a parent, when you know that you're slipping and you know that something's not right, go to a counselor, go to a therapist, go see somebody, um, get a diagnosis. I mean, all too often, no, I don't want, I'm not going to do that because I don't want the diagnosis. Okay, but you want your child to see you loving you 1 minute and then telling them they're a piece of crap the next, like that's not beneficial. So you really want to make sure that you're the best person that you can be for your children. And so it's really hard because, again, your world is unraveling, but you need to take that first step. You need to go and seek professional help so that you can figure out what's going on with you. Again, maybe it's just that you're super depressed because, oh my God, my husband of 30 years, who I am his soulmate, just all of a sudden told me he's walking out the door and he doesn't love me anymore. Absolute devastation. Understandable. You're basically grieving like as if they had died, but they haven't died and now they're in your life and you can sort of see them and oh my God. And so it's like 1,000% worse, right? But again, you need to get that professional help, whatever it is. And sometimes you obviously need more help depending on that diagnosis. And sometimes it's just, I need to go and talk to a therapist and flesh this out and figure out other ways to cope. But that's the big thing. Is it other ways to cope? Is there medication that needs to be prescribed to you so that you feel more stable? I mean, a lot of times, again, you can be off the rails, but if you have that mood stabilizer or whatever you need for your diagnosis, the better off you're going to be and the better off you're going to be for your children.
I mean, that's a really good point you make too, Nicole, because it is like somebody died, but it's not, because you have to relive that death over and over. If you were emotionally attached to them and you're watching them go through all the phases of moving on, maybe you're sad because you're moving on. I mean, and they explain, they make you take a divorce class when you have children. And they really do. They explain all the stages of grief that people go through, and it might be that they're angry right now. It might be that they're sad, and that people can go from stage 1 to stage 4 to stage 2 to stage 3 back to stage 1, and it's up and down, and it depends on the day, and it depends on what's going on. And you guys as a divorced couple, might be at different levels at different times and going all over the place, and you don't know what they're feeling right now. And unfortunately, there's also the added factor of children, and they're also going through all different stages of grief and being angry if one of the parents has a new love interest, or they have to move and their houses are so different, and the parenting styles are different. I mean, it's a lot for everybody. So it's definitely responsible to get some help if you really feel like you need it. And sometimes just talking to your friends and family about it until you're blue in the face is not going to help, because then you're the Debbie Downer for years. And and no, really, but they're not, unless they really are a therapist, or someone that can actually tell you what you should do and give you coping mechanisms, then they're just like sitting around saying how much they hate your ex too. And what an idiot and whatever, that you're not really going to grow from that, and it's not going to get better. It's not even a band-aid.
And what they're actually doing is fueling the fire. I mean, it's great to talk to friends and family about that stuff, but again, if you have a mental health issue and you're listening to your best friend or your brother who's telling you, yeah, he's a piece of crap, it's fueling your fire. You're not going to get any better. You're going to get worse, because you're just going to be like, I need to kill him. I need to go after him. He needs to never see his children again. That's how I feel. And again, from my perspective, I'm going, okay, but what has he done? He left me. Okay, but what has he done to the children? Well, he's just not there. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it means he's in work all the time. Okay, but how does it make him a bad parent? It makes him an absentee father, but how does it make him a bad parent? And so, of course, I'm trying to do that analysis with you, and of course, you're just like, why am I even talking to you, Nicole? Because you're not listening to me, and I am listening to you. The problem is again, I'm trying to get you that step that's a little bit further. And when you have that person in your life that's fueling the fire, it's not necessarily the best avenue.
Yeah, and some people never realize that. Some people it takes them a while. Some people go in and they get help for themselves right away because they already know they've seen somebody go through it, and they don't want to end up the same way, just regurgitating the same stories, and oh, now this happened and now that happened. And my feeling on it is, yeah, you're going to take some time to hate that person. Try not to hate that person in front of your kids. And the only thing I really feel like you should fight about is, if someone is neglecting your child, bring it up, keep bringing it up. And if that makes you a jerk, then so be it, as long as your children are being taken care of. And then you have to take care of yourself as well to take care of your children.
Exactly, and I think that's the big thing is, we're talking about this, and we're talking about what you're expressing to your significant other. But guess what? Who's sitting there in the background? Who's sitting at the kitchen table when that's happening? And that's the problem. There's the children. And so you just need one person to pick up the phone, or one child to go, hey, mommy and daddy were fighting yesterday. Oh, yeah, tell me about it. And Sally tells the teacher goes, okay, DCF, here you go. Um, it's just that simple. Or more importantly, you're going through it and somebody goes, I'm going to call the police. Okay, great. Now DCF's involved. So, your actions have consequences, and they have immediate consequences. And obviously, the point is, any parent arguing is going to result in a DCF supported case for neglect. Your children should not be seeing that. You need to do that behind closed doors, and behind different houses and things of that nature. Like, it needs to be that remote, because now you're subjecting your children to that volatile situation, and DCF will support it every single time. So really, you need to be cognizant of that. And more importantly, again, what are you teaching your child? Are you teaching your child it's okay to throw? Are you teaching your child it's okay to, degrade somebody and belittle them? Are you teaching your child that it's okay to punch somebody? Like, you've got to think about everything that you're doing is teaching them something. And your reaction to that person is teaching them something. So you really want to make sure that you're staying away from things like that, getting yourself out of that situation as it happens. And I know what you're saying is there's no way in hell I can do that, Nicole. You can. You just have to breathe and you have to take a step back and you have to be cognizant of it. And people with mental illnesses still do this every day and they still function. So I'm not saying you're going to lose your children because you have mental illness. No, absolutely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you need to make sure that you know the triggers and you know how to react to them.
Wow, I didn't know that if your kid told somebody that you guys were fighting and like that could be DCF. That seems like that is something that probably happens all the time. But that's just me. So let's move to what happens if you find out that your ex does have some sort of a mental illness, or how how does that progress to changing parenting time? Like what typically happens?
It really depends on where you are and what safeguards you have in place. I mean, how many times have we seen alcoholics, recovering alcoholics, but alcoholics have custody? It's the exact same thing for somebody that has depression or bipolar. The question is, are you on medications? Are you receiving treatments? Are you doing your therapies? Are you doing what is required for your particular mental illness? If the answer is yes, then there's nothing that's stopping you from having custody, but probably yourself. Now, obviously, once you, unless and until you get on that regiment, yeah, your world is going to be a little chaotic, and you're probably not going to get custody, and we're probably going to have to fight to get you custody back. But once you're stable, I mean, I have tons of clients that have sat there and said, "Yep, I'm bipolar. I have custody of my kids." Not a big deal because they're taking the precautions, they know the symptoms, they're meeting with their professionals on a regular basis. Now, again, same way any alcoholic can have. Can you have a relapse? Yes. Can you have a change in medication that has this weird side effect that makes you go loopy? Absolutely. And those are the times you go, oh, great. Now I got DCF involved, and now my ex is coming to take my child because I had something happen. And that's really where I have to come into play and you know, kind of go through everything with the judge and explain like this is what happened, but this is the reason why. It's because I was taking a thyroid medication that interfered with my depression medication and made me all loopy. Whatever that is, that's what we need to know and we need to figure it out. And then we're going to have to show a period of time in which we can show again we're back to being stable, we're back to being rational and normal and back on track, that we're not a danger to our children.
I mean, that those are all really good points. I think that you're really dispelling a myth here, and that a lot of people probably think that they shouldn't get therapy because in the past, maybe in the way past at this point, there was a stigma attached to getting therapy. There's something really wrong with you. And some people might have been like, "Oh, you need a shrink." I mean, that's what it was back then. And now I think it's really positive. I think that I don't know, maybe every other person I know has had some at some point or might be currently in therapy. And, it's healthy. It helps them get through a tough time, and it should be construed as admirable, not a negative side effect of something really being wrong with you. And it is very interesting to hear that, people that are bipolar can get, I mean, as long as they're on their medication and they're good parents and they're not harming their child mentally or physically, because let's face it, like the mental stuff is really, um, it can be just as harmful as the physical.
Absolutely. And again, I think it goes back to where are you at? It makes a lot more sense when you're getting that treatment. And I get that, it's scary, but there's no stigma whatsoever in the courthouse. And if there is a stigma, the stigma is, why aren't you going to counseling? It's more of the exact opposite nowadays, because we understand that every action in court, well, I shouldn't say that, but 90% of the actions in court, the ones that are legitimate, that are going into court, it's because there's a conflict. There's a high conflict going on that these two parties, these two parents, are butting heads on. And how do you address that? How do you get over that? You can't get over that until you can get help. And again, it's just somebody that is venting to the right person. Because venting to the wrong person, like I said, leads to more problems. But if you're venting to the right person and you're getting your resources, sometimes people only need to go for, 2 or 3 sessions. Some people are like, I've been done with this marriage for the last 5 years, and both parties are. And they're able to walk away. But the reality is, they're few and far between.
Well, how hard is it if you see that there's a problem with your ex? How hard is it to get them to either get the help that's going to make them a better parent for your kids, or and maybe even like answering the question, how hard is it for someone to even recognize in themselves that they need the help and get the help? I mean, usually people don't, I think. But not the people that need the help. But I don't know. I mean, what do you see?
I think if you don't have a diagnosis, you automatically instinctually say that's a stigma, and it's not. It really isn't. I've offered it to many of my clients. I mean, just clients that are sitting there going, Nicole, da, 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 and they're talking to me, and I'm like, you do realize you've been on the phone with me for 45 minutes, and I've written down like 3 things. Like, the things that you're telling me are what you tell your girlfriend, not what you tell your attorney, because none of that really matters. Um, and it's all due respect to my clients, but I'm like, their counselors are much cheaper. They're covered under health insurance. So go to them. So there are times that I encourage clients to do that. And there's, obviously, like I said, if you have a mental health diagnosis, absolutely you should be going anyways. But if you don't have a mental health diagnosis, and again, you're having troubles and you're struggling, go. The court isn't going to anything any less of you. And the reality is, remember, your children's world is being turned upside down right now. They have now went from a one family, two parents living together in whatever situation, to now two different households, and I'm a ping pong ball, and I don't know where I'm going each day of the week, and mommy's saying this about daddy, and daddy's saying this about mommy, and we're not getting anywhere, and I don't even know where I'm supposed to go today. And literally, that's how the kids feel. Give them a resource. Give them to somebody to talk to. And even if somebody to talk to in the beginning is just the guidance counselor at school, give them that outlet. Because without that outlet, they're going to start showing signs. They're going to start doing bad in school. They're going to start pitting one parent against the other. They're going to tell lies about the other parent. At mommy's house, we did this. I got to do this. And whatever the case may be, they are going to use whatever they can, because that's what they know. And that's not how they know how to cope. But again, until you give them that mechanism of an outlet in a therapist situation, they're not going to know any better.
So, in other words, it could be a real circus.
It could be a real circus. And at the end of the day, again, you know, we encourage everyone that's going through a contentious anything in the courthouse to go get help, professional help. Again, even if it's only 1 week, 2 weeks, 6 years, who cares? But get that help that you need, so that when you walk in the courthouse, you're not going, oh, and getting all nasty and getting into somebody's face, and I'm going to call the cops, and I'm going to, like, don't. Take a step back, act like an adult, because guess what? The judge is seeing it, the court officers are seeing it, the other attorneys are seeing it, and they're going to use all that against you.
So, well, this is really good. Do you have anything else you'd like to tell us about this particular topic? Any tips? I mean, besides get the help that you need, get your kids help if they need help, try to get your ex to get help. I don't know. I maybe that should be a new requirement when people go through a divorce with kids, not just the class, but everyone gets therapy.
It, you know, it at some point, sometimes we want to recommend that. And the problem is, unless there's something going on, the court can't force you to do that. So it really kind of falls back on the parents. And, all too often it falls back on the attorney. And I can only recommend it. And I have clients that are adamantly opposed. I'm not doing counseling, that's for wimps. Okay, but I think it might benefit your daughter. No, it's not. And I actually I had somebody, and I was flabbergasted because this guy was so incredibly nasty. And I really was just like, wow, I really dislike this person. And he had a come to Jesus moment. And I don't know what changed it. And he said, I'm going to go to therapy. And the next time he came into court, he was like, I want to apologize for acting so rude to you and apologize to the court. And I understand why my child doesn't want to see me today. And I'm hoping that I can do better for myself so that one day she'll want to see me. And I went, what just happened? So again, I don't know if he got the therapy. Maybe it was just, talking to his counselors or his parishioners at church, because I know he was very God loving. And they had a intervention with him, if you will. I don't know what it was, but all of a sudden he definitely had a complete 180. And I was like, wow, you know what? I'm going to talk to that other party now because I actually believe you. And if I believe you and the court believes you, there might be hope for fixing that relationship.
Finally, we get to hear a success story. I mean, that's amazing. And even though we don't know it's about therapy, it's really about looking at yourself in the mirror. If there's something going wrong, it's easy to look at other people, but you also need to look at yourself, and you need to, and I know sometimes kids can be manipulative, and this happened and that happened, but I mean, I think deep down the kids and the people, they want to be treated right, and they don't want to feel bad all the time. That's what I think.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, I think that speaks volumes because they're going to see that behavior. And that behavior is going to be, is being taught to them. So again, if you are a better human, your child is going to be a better human. You stop that cycle of abuse, you stop that cycle of whatever it is. And obviously you can't stop the mental health issues. We understand that. But at least you can understand them quickly. You can develop ways to address them quickly, and you can figure out solutions that work for you and your family.
Really, it's just about living your best life. I mean, you don't want to live unhappy and angry, and hopefully you can get the help for the mental issues so that everybody is happier. And uh, I just think this is a really helpful conversation for people. Hopefully encourage people to give it a try. If they've tried everything else, give it a try and see if it can help improve your situation. And so, yeah, thank you so much for coming on today, Nicole. This has been a fantastic topic, a topic that we really haven't talked to in this much depth before. And I I think that this message is very positive, and that I hope that people really take advantage of the advice that you've given us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you so much for coming on. Thank you everyone for watching. We look forward to seeing you next week with another great topic.